Good evening and a warm welcome to you who have joined us here this evening for this most important session entitled the United Nations Virtual Career Showcase for the Eastern Caribbean. The UWI Open Campus is delighted to have been chosen by UN Careers to host and coordinate this event in collaboration with the UWI Open Campus Countryside in St. Lucia. My name is Cleveland Sam and I will be your moderator for the evening. It is the dream of many people to work at the United Nations. However, many do not understand the process and often get frustrated and give up after a few attempts. This evening, you are very fortunate because you will benefit from this session in which the United Nations has provided not one, not two, but 3 representatives to give you first-hand information on what it takes to embark on a UN career at this much sought-after institution. We have a full evening in store for you, and I am confident that at the end of it, you would leave filled with information and ready to take action. We will have 3 persons here, as I said, and then it will be followed by a question and answer segment. Remember, you can type your questions and comments in the comment section on Facebook or on YouTube, and we will answer those questions for you. So let me start by introducing our first speaker, and she is Joan Ampher, and she's in the Diversity and Outreach section, Office of Human Resources Department, Management Strategy, Policy and Compliance at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Joan, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Cleveland. Thanks for having us. Thank you so much for everything that you've done to coordinate this event. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. We also have with us this evening one of our very own from the Helen of the West, and she would also be presenting later, Jennifer Blinker, and she's in the Human Resources Partnership Bureau of Human Resources, UNESCO, and she's a citizen of St. Lucia, as I said, and a successful Young Professionals Program candidate. Jennifer, good evening.
Oh, Mike.
I think you're muted, Jennifer.
Yes,
Jennifer,
sorry. Yes.
There you go.
Yes, good evening, Cleveland. Thank you for a very warm welcome, and it's a wonderful pleasure to be here. Yes, thank you.
All right, and we will hear from you later on how it all started for you at the United Nations. With us also is Jennifer Branch, and she's a Senior Legal Officer, Critical Incident Response Service, Office of Human Resources, Department of Management, Strategy and Policy Compliance. Jennifer, good evening.
A very good evening to you, Cleveland, and a very good evening to all the other panelists and colleagues and to all of our guests as well.
All right. So thank you, and we'll hear from the 2 Jennifers a little later on. But at this time, I'm going to invite Joan to do her presentation. Take it away, Joan.
Okay, thank you so much, Cleveland. I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, so thanks again, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure for me and my team to be here and to give you information about the United Nations careers and how to go about perhaps starting a career at the UN. As Cleveland mentioned, my name is Joan Ampher, and I'm with the Talent Outreach team in UN Secretariat. I actually started my career many years ago. If I tell you how long I've worked in the UN, you will know how old I am. So let's go there. It's been a long time that I've worked in the UN. And I've held several positions. I started as a general service staff, and I came in on a temporary, and that's a way that you can come in. I'll get into that later. So when I came, it was like for the General Assembly. So temporary assignment during that time, during the GA, they usually hire extra help. So that's how I came in. And at the time I was doing my degree in college. So once I graduated, I loved the UN. So I stayed and eventually also took the YPP, which I'll be talking about shortly, and passed and was able to move ahead with my career in the UN. So my experience within the UN has been very extensive in the area of management and administration. I have extensive experience in benefits and entitlements within the UN, and also served as a recruiter for the UN for many years. So I'm going to go ahead and begin the presentation. I will skip Jennifer's area because she will be coming shortly to talk about her experience and her career. So today's presentation, this is an outline. I'm going to begin by giving you an overview of the UN system. We'll talk about the different job networks and categories, job categories. I'll give you a bit about benefits and entitlements, walk you through the entry points. And one of the entry points is a YPP, which is the Young Professionals Program. So I'll give you all the entry points and then highlight the YPP. And also I will walk you through the job application process. And then after that, it's our special surprise, which is our feature success story. So the UN is a vast network of many organizations and agencies. So I'm from the Secretariat. So for the Secretariat alone, let me give you an idea based on this map you're looking at. It's all over the world. We're in North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, the Caribbean, everywhere. So as you can see, to look for jobs, you have to expand your reach and the possibilities are endless. So this is like a map of the UN system, just to give you an idea of how many areas, how many corners you would have to look to find a job. The chances of you finding something somewhere in this vast network of interconnected agencies, funds and programs, specialized departments is endless. So I'm from the Secretariat, as you can see, and Secretariat alone, if you see the blue line, reaches many departments and also the regional commissions, which are around the world. And Jennifer, who will be coming to you shortly to speak about her organization, she's with a specialized agency, UNESCO. So this map actually is online. If you Google the United Nations system, you will get an idea of how big we are and how many areas you can look for jobs. So what do? We're in development, we're in peace and security, and we're in humanitarian and human rights activities around the world globally. So this is for the Secretariat alone. It's 193 member states, and it's over 40,000 staff members. This is the Secretariat alone. So you can imagine how many people the UN recruits. So we're in the field, we're in the non-field, and we're working towards gender equality. So right now we're getting close. It's 40% female and 60% male. And as I mentioned, we're in peacekeeping operations, humanitarian, human rights, and economic and social development activities. So what are the key priority areas? Not long ago, the UN and its different organizations collaborated and decided that there are certain key priorities that need to be taken care of in terms of the UN not just being an organization that just comes in when there's war or when there's unrest or when there's hunger, but rather there's certain things that when it's put in place, it promotes peace and security and happiness, whereby it prevents wars and economic issues from happening. And so they came up with what we call the Sustainable Development Goals. So these are 17 goals that the UN hopes to achieve by the year 2030. So one is no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education for everyone on this planet, gender equality is big, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth for all, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, especially because when it's equality, there's less chance for civil unrest, sustainable cities and communities, respectable communities, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And there's a partnership for all these goals between all the UN agencies to achieve this. So as you can see, we have a tall order in terms of what we're doing. So top on the agenda this year is no poverty, gender equality is one, reduce inequality, climate action, and the rest. So there are so many offices that are working together to do this, as I mentioned. But just to give you a sneak peek of some of these offices, we have the UN Secretariat where we're from. We have UNFPA, UNICEF, UNDP, UNFP, which is the World Food Program, UN Habitat, FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, UN Women for Gender Equality, and UNESCO. So as you can see, these are all organizations. This is just a few of, just to give you an idea of organizations working collaboratively together to achieve our sustainable development goals. So with this, we need workers in every field, so to speak. So these are the job networks that we are in. So we have, these are examples, DevNet, which is Economic, Social, and Development Network, Information, Infonet, Public Information, Conference Management, iTechNet, the Information and Telecommunications, Legal Network, LogNet, which is Logistics, Supply Chain Network, Magnet, which is Management, Administration, Political Science, Humanitarian work. We even have security. And this includes not just regular security, but we have high-level security in terms of investigators and the like. We also have the Science Network. We have doctors, nurses, etc., working for the UN. These also are an examples of some of the jobs we recruit for. This is not all. We couldn't fit everything on this screen. So this is just to give you an idea of how far it will reach. Auditors, administrators, aviation, conference and language staff, drug control, finance, engineering, information management, logistics, statisticians, program, project management, procurement, radio, TV, social affairs, and the list goes on. So the UN staff is divided into several categories. So we have the field service staff. These are recruited internationally. And for this, no college diploma is needed. You just need a high school diploma as a minimum requirement. And they work in the field. The general service staff and related also falls in the same category, but they're recruited locally. So for these staff, they work in administrative work and support staff in various capacities. You can come in temporarily on these levels if you want to get a feel for what the UN is about, to work on different projects. Or you can come in with a career like that, like I did. I came in on the general service level and then moved up. And then we have the professional and higher categories, which is for college graduates. That would be where I would recommend you come in through. And I will talk about the Young Professionals Program, which falls under this category. These are internationally recruited. So advanced degree, university degree is required, or you could come in with a bachelor's, but then you would need 2 additional years of qualifying experience. And then we have the national offices. So those also are recruited locally, and they're also professionals. They work on analytical work. They do analytical work, leadership and managerial roles, and also decision-making, etc. So working within the UN is an all-inclusive environment. We promote respect for diversity. It's a multicultural and multilingual environment. And as I had mentioned, it's a global collaboration to ensure that these are there. And so there's respect for diversity in all areas of gender, race, regardless of your race, socioeconomic status, your religion, your sexual orientation, and also a big area for us is people with disabilities. We're working to ensure that anyone with disability that is able and qualified to work, we work to promote reasonable accommodations to make sure that everybody is welcome to work in the UN global environment. So working for the UN, what are the benefits and entitlements? What's in it for you? Our salaries are competitive, but at times they may not necessarily be competitive with other organizations. However, there are so many benefits that are very, very good if you work for the UN. Examples, if you work on an international level, would be education grants for your children, dependency allowances for spouses that make less than a certain minimum threshold, a certain maximum threshold. We have rental subsidy also for international staff. Our pension benefits are very good. Health insurance is very good in terms of being equal to what they have in Europe. We have annual leave, which is also, I would say, about 6 weeks every year that you would get of paid leave. Maternity leave is 4 months for females, and then we even have paternity leave, which is about a month for new fathers. And also working within the UN, it's not just about money. For someone to work in the UN, you have to be someone who wants to make a difference in the world. As I had mentioned, when I listed the Sustainable Development Goals, you will see that these are initiatives that helps to uplift other people. So if you're somebody who's passionate about working on any of these projects, any of these initiatives, then working in the UN will be for you, because the satisfaction you will get will not be for money. It won't be what you'll be looking for. In addition to the money, you will get that personal intrinsic reward, having known that you've made a difference in the world in what you do. So what are the entry points? Let's go over them. We have regular job openings that are on every level, from the director level all the way to the lowest level. So those are jobs you can apply through. We have temporary job openings. That's very good for those who want to, perhaps they're not sure if the UN is for them. There's so many opportunities that come up throughout the year. For me, for example, I came in through the General Assembly during that time. So many new staff are hired on a temporary basis to help. There are many projects. People may perhaps go on maternity leave, or somebody may go on an assignment or transfers, where we hire temporary staff to come in and assist. So these are ways that you can come in and get a feel for the UN. We also have internships, and I will, this is all over the different UN agencies and organizations, and I'll talk about that in a bit. We also have the Young Professionals Program, YPP. I'll go very in-depth on this one, because the exams is currently, applications are open. We also have the Junior Professional Officers. These are also the entry levels, same as the Young Professional Program. And these are sponsored by their government to come in and work for the UN and get a feel for what the UN is, gain experience, and see if some of them do stay and some of them use the experience they received to go and work for their government. We also have consultants and individual contractors. I'll speak about that in a little bit. And then we have language competitive examination, the LCE. These are language staff. As you know, the UN is multilingual environment. So we have 6 official languages, and we engage in many conferences and events, and we need people that speak these different languages. So exams are given every year for editors, translators, interpreters, verbatim reporters, etc. And for the successful candidates, they are placed on rosters, and the different departments that need the language staff pick from the rosters and recruit them to come in as UN staff. We also have UN volunteers, which I will be speaking about shortly. So with the internships, it's a great way to come in and work with career professionals. If you have special skills you can showcase, it's a chance for you to network and again, get a feel for what the UN is like. The eligibility would be that you must be enrolled in a graduate school program or higher, or in the final year of your bachelor's. It is full-time. Fluency in English or French is required. You cannot be a child or a sibling of a UN staff member. And although the positions are unpaid, I believe the experience that candidates get is very valuable in terms of helping them build and start their career. The duration is 2 to 6 months. Now we're on to our big activity or exam that is going on right now, which is the Young Professionals Program, YPP. So what is the YPP? The YPP, let me back up. in general, the UN looks to make sure that there's geographic diversity in terms of representation of our staff, right? And so every year we look to see what countries are not well represented among the staff population. And when we do that, the exam is to give an opportunity for these individuals, nationals of these countries, to participate and compete in exams. And then for those who succeed, they have a chance to start a career within the UN with, of course, help for career development, et cetera, and to work in many regions of the world. So what are the eligibility requirements? The nationality, of course, the person has to be a national of a participating member state at the time of application. So your country has to be at risk or underrepresented in the UN population and be marked as such for that year in order to be eligible. Another point is that you have to have a minimum first level university degree or equivalent, bachelor's or equivalent, which is relevant to the specific exam area you're applying to take the exam. And please ensure that when some people have more than one bachelor's degree, make sure that you only apply for one. If you apply for more than one exam area, it will disqualify you. And another is you must be 32 years or younger by the end of the year. So for this year, for the 2020 exam, your date of birth must be on or after 1st January 1988. You must be fluent in either English or French in the areas of reading, writing, speaking, and understanding. I'll explain that in detail in a little bit. No experience is necessary, but I encourage everyone to please reflect all your experiences in there, including any also your academic qualifications. This is because when any country has nationals, that we have too many nationals from one country applying, there's a cap on how many are allowed to take the exam. And so what they do is they will look at your degree qualification as well as your experience in order to reduce the amount. And so make sure you reflect everything. Otherwise, once you come on board, you will be given professional development assistance. And so in general, no experience is necessary other than the fact that, I repeat, you need to reflect it in your application. In case we need to reduce the amount of people that need to come in, then that will become a factor. So this is the flyer that we put out for this year 2020 examination. As you can see, it lists all the countries that will be participating this year. So I circled some in your region. I included a few in Central America. So here you see some examples: Antigua and Barbuda, Belize, which is in Central America, Cuba, Caribbean. We have Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, of course, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Suriname, which is Central America. The exam areas are determined every year. It varies depending on the needs of the organization. So for the 2020 examination, the areas are management and administration, global communications, political affairs, and human rights. And the exams are open September through the end of October, the application period. This is the application period. So from now till October 31st, you are welcome to apply if you meet the eligibility requirements. And during your application this year, we have a special feature where there's a chat box in the website where if you encounter any difficulties, you can chat with someone to help you complete your application. So what does the YPP exam structure consist of? It is an online examination. It has two stages. Stage one is a multiple choice questions. It's general and specialized, and it lasts approximately about 2 hours. You can take it in either English or French. So the general paper will assess a variety of competencies, abilities critical to the work in an international organization. And a specialized paper will assess your knowledge and attributes relevant to the specific exam area you have applied and convoked to take the exam in. So again, the online exam, the second stage, this stage typically consists of a specialized constructed response. In other words, they are essays, open-ended questions that you have to write essays on. You have to be very good in writing. You can again view this in English or French. And the questions also must be answered in English or French. And then at times, certain questions can be answered in any of the one UN official languages. This stage may be proctored remotely via webcam and a monitoring software. So just to walk you through quickly, the application process. First, you learn about the YPP, which you're doing now. You apply through Inspira, and then applications are assessed, and then you will be convoked officially to take the exam. It will be a written communication to you that you've been selected to take the exam. And then once you are selected to take the exam, they give you study material in terms of sample questions, etc., that will help you prepare for the exam. It's an online exam, as I had said. And then if you are successful, you are invited to participate in an interview, which is a competency-based interview. All UN interviews are competency-based, and I'll give you a quick tip on that shortly. After that, you are placed on a roster. And then, of course, the roster is valid for 3 years. And then, of course, you are able to join the UN when selected. And here is the roster selection, placement and selection. So successful candidates, as I said, are rostered. And then vacancies become available. Again, the roster membership is valid for 3 years. And so once you're picked off the roster and placed in a vacancy, you are given a 2-year fixed term contract, which starts your UN career. And based on your successful performance on the job, this contract after 2 years will be converted to a continuing contract. So the YPP, all the placements on the professional level, P2, P as in Paul, 2. And then, of course, the positions are all over various UN Secretariat offices, Addis Ababa, which is in East Africa, Bangkok, Thailand, Beirut, Geneva, Nairobi, New York, of course, Santiago, Chile, and Vienna. And of course, when you're placed, you must serve for a minimum of 2 years at that position before you can move on. Unless, of course, you transfer to another position. But of course, you have to, again, be on that spot, on that vacancy on that position, for 2 years before you can. And this is a warning. The UN does not charge for YPP examination materials. Once you are convoked, like I said, the materials are given out, and we've seen that some companies are taking this material and selling it to people as for money. Please do not pay money for any of this, as the UN will give this to you for free. So keep that in mind. So what are the other entry points in the UN? Having spoken about the YPP. Another is the UN volunteers. There are 3 types of volunteers that people can participate in. This is a great way. So I'm saying this additional job entry point because, of course, not everybody's country may be on the list, or not everybody may pass, or not everybody may have a degree in the field that is being given this year. So for those people, there are other entry points, as I've been talking about. So UN volunteers is a great way to gain experience. Minimum 25 years or older, this is for the standard volunteer, and a university degree or any higher technical degree, and several years of relevant experience. Fluency in English or the language that is required for that job. You have to be able to work in a multicultural environment. So to be a UN volunteer, you register online at the UNV Global Talent Pool. Again, all this information that I'm giving you can be obtained at careers.un.org. For UN volunteers, you receive a paid allowance, which is like a monthly stipend for, I guess, food and room and board, I guess. And we also have the youth volunteers. Those have to be between 18 and 29 years of age, sponsored by UN agencies, governments, and academic institutions. Duration, 6 to 24 months. So you work on issues of political development and humanitarian operations, and to push our agenda, all our sustainable development goals along. So again, apply at unv.org, how to volunteer, and register yourself as a volunteer. We also have online volunteers. Even before the COVID, the UN already had this online volunteer program. So it's an online partnership. You register, it's a registration process. So UN entities, governmental and public institutions, and also civil society organizations are all, it's a network that is all ready to take you to work on different projects online, based on your field of expertise. And so you team up again, as I mentioned, to address different sustainable development goals. Again, you apply online at volunteers.org. Consultants. Consultants are also a great way if you're a specialist in your field. This is a great way to come in and work at the UN on a limited duration to showcase your skills, network, etc. It's advisory or consultative in capacity. Some consultants will analyze problems, direct seminars, or conduct training courses, prepare documents for meetings or conferences, write reports on matters within the area of expertise. And this is just a few. I mean, the list of things that consultants do are endless. Duration is 24 months in a 36-month period. Another entry point is contractors, individual contractors. This is very similar to consultants. They provide expertise, skills, or knowledge for the performance of certain specific tasks. These are short-term, full-time, or part-time. Duration is 6 months in a 12-month period, and sometimes 9 months in special circumstances. Again, all this information is at our careers.un.org website, so check it out. So this is a screenshot of that website, careers.un.org. This is where you go to search for all these job openings. So you visit the website, you search for a position, and then create your profile, of course, which I'll give you a few tips shortly. So you can even set up automatic email job alerts where certain field vacancies that you're looking for in a certain specific vacancy area, you can set automatic alerts where you'll be emailed when those jobs are advertised. And then you'll get a chance to apply for relevant job openings. So here I put a screenshot of where you go to search. I put an example for the YPP, which is a Young Professionals Program, which I hope many of you will be applying for. So in that site, you put in for category, you put professional and higher categories. For level, you put P2. And then all of the rest, leave it all, and then you search. This will pull up the list of this year's exams. And this is how you do it to search for any other jobs. You just put in the criteria and search for it. So for this year, as you can see, I've pulled up the list of exams. It comes in this way. So you're applying for the job, but technically you're applying to take the examination. So once you apply, then they review your application and convoke you to take the exam, as I mentioned. So once you search for those jobs, click apply, you will get a window that will open for you to create your profile. The UN doesn't take resumes. We have an online profile, which is called the Personal History Profile, PHP. So these are the different parts of the PHP. You will have your cover letter to complete, your personal information, your education, your employment history, your languages, references, etc. So let me give you a tip on how to fill out your application in a way that will guarantee that you are not automatically rejected by the system, because initially the assessment is done by computer, it's computerized. And so if you don't fill it correctly, you can automatically get rejected inadvertently. So these are areas of education, work experience, and languages. So what you do is you read the job opening very carefully in these 3 areas. And for example, in education, if it says a minimum bachelor's degree is required, make sure you reflect that. And also there's a checkbox that asks you degree obtained. If you obtain the degree, make sure you check yes. If you don't, the system will assume you didn't obtain the degree and it will automatically reject you. In the area of work experience, let's say, for example, it asks you a minimum of 3 years experience is required, or a minimum of 5 years experience is required. When you're listing your experiences, make sure that the amount in terms of duration, the number of years, it meets the years that is required in the job opening. Otherwise, you'll be automatically rejected. And keep in mind, internships and volunteer work are counted as half the time. So let's say, for example, you did 2 years of internship or 2 years of volunteer work. When you're filling an application and you're trying to count to see that you meet the minimum experience required, make sure that you're mindful that for the internships and the volunteer work, it's counted as half. So try to find other experiences. That way you don't get rejected. So the 2 years, it will be half. So it'll be 1 year for, it'll be counted as 1 year for internship and also for volunteers. Also in the area of languages, I have another slide that will explain further. And also I will talk about competency in a few seconds, competency-based, all the competencies that come in your job application. So for the experience, once you've reflected it and there's a section where you have to write in detail what experiences you have, ask yourself these questions. What did you do in the job and how well you did in the job? Keeping in mind what is the requirement in the job opening. So make sure you describe what responsibilities you had. As I had mentioned, paying particular attention to the requirements in the vacancy. Anything else can also be reflected, but if you have anything that speaks to that vacancy, it's good to make sure you include that as well. So again, put your whole experiences, but if you have anything that relates to the job opening, don't forget to highlight those as well. And make sure you give specific examples of how you made remarkable contributions in the performance of your duties. If you have numbers, any statistics, if you can quantify to make it more meaningful, by all means do so. These are just some tips. And so languages, when you go to put in the section on languages, I mentioned the area of reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So we'll ask you, for example, for the job opening, let's say, for example, it would say fluency in English is required, and you know you're fluent in English. Be very careful that when you put in those fields where it asks you, you'll be required to put your level of competency in the area of reading, listening, speaking, and writing, whether your level of competency is basic, confident, or fluent. So if you are fluent in the language, make sure in those 4 areas, I repeat, reading, listening, speaking, and writing, make sure you put fluent. If you don't do that, the system will unfortunately automatically reject the application. So keep that in mind. And again, we interpret basic as just having simple knowledge of the language, confident as having moderate, and efficiently, of course, you're fluent, and very efficient, of course, are those who are like translators, etc. So of course, you know your level of fluency, competency. And so these are some of the competencies, all of it actually, that for competency-based interviews. For every job opening, the competencies that will be assessed in the interview for that job opening are reflected in the job opening. This is for the UN job openings that I'm speaking for. So all of them have professionalism as a competency. And then of course, you would have 3 more. You have 2 more core competencies. For example, teamwork, or maybe client orientation, or maybe planning and organizing. So keep those in mind when you prepare for your interview. You can read the job opening and know that the questions will be based on the competencies that were advertised in the job opening. And that's how you prepare for the interview. And so there are some tips, tutorials on our website, careers.un.org, on how to create your online profile, which is our version of the resume, in order to submit your application. So make sure you check that out. We also have a tutorial on competency-based interviews. So check that one out as well. And we want you to follow us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that we are not able to cover today, email us on talentoutreach@un.org. Thank you so much. And now we have our special guest. Over to you, Cleveland.
Thank you so much, Joan. Wow, that's really, really great information. And I'm sure that our listeners, our followers on both Facebook and YouTube have some questions already for you, but we have told them to give us a couple more minutes until after the presentation. But really rich presentation, and I'm sure it has really opened up the eyes of some of our folks in the Eastern Caribbean. At this time, I'm going to introduce to you one of our very own from St. Lucia, Jennifer Blinker, and she is at the United Nations. I understand that she actually entered through the Young Professionals Program. But Jennifer, tell us a bit about how you entered the UN and how it works and what are you doing now?
Okay. Thank you very much, Cleveland. And first of all, thank you very much, Joan, for a brilliant presentation. Very well. Well, I would like to welcome my fellow citizens of St. Lucia who are attending, and also fellow citizens of other Caribbean islands. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here. It feels like coming home. And what do I mean by that? I've been gone for 30 years. 30 years ago, I left St. Lucia to join this great organization called UNESCO. And today I'm here. I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm a national of St. Lucia. And I'm currently based at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, where I currently work as a human resources officer in the Human Resources Partnership Program, where I'm responsible for implementing, coordinating, and managing different programs within the Human Resources Strategy Program of UNESCO. But before I go further, I would like to say a few words about UNESCO itself. And then I will share with you my story as to how I came into the organization. So I will be very brief because in Joan, in her presentation, she has touched on many things which are common to the other organizations. And so UNESCO, as you all would know, is a specialized agency of the United Nations for education, science, culture, and communication, and also social and human sciences. And the overall mandate and vision or global reach of UNESCO is basically, it seeks to build peace through international cooperation in education, science, and culture. And if you look at it, the beautiful mandate of UNESCO, which came into being after the World War, and it says, since wars begin in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace must be constructed. So UNESCO seeks to build peace. And as you would be aware, this mandate is still very relevant in our times, in the world that we live in. UNESCO has over 193 member states, and at present, there are 171 nationalities that are represented in the Secretariat. We have over 2,000 regular program staff, which are split between headquarters and our various field offices. And we also have other staff in another category that can fall under non-regular consultants and a wide range, which Joan has already mentioned in the presentation, and that would also total another 2,000, over 2,000. Now, I am part of the staff, and how did I get there? How did it begin? So here my story begins, and I'm going to share with you very candidly in a very relaxed manner so that you could walk through it with me. I never dreamt of working in the UN because it seemed so far away. It was so distant. It was just a thought, actually, that crossed my mind once. I had a wish, and a wish to work in a UN agency, and the wish just stayed as a wish. But when I graduated from the university with my first degree, my bachelor's degree from the University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario, Canada, I went home, and my first job was a teacher of social sciences in a secondary school called the Leon Hest Comprehensive Secondary School in St. Lucia. So while I was there, my mom one day said to me, "Jennifer, I saw an advertisement in the newspaper." Now, I must point out, thanks to her being literate, she could read and she was able to see this ad. Literacy is a program that UNESCO has been pushing forward since 1946. I wanted to point that out. It's part of our education program. So my mom saw this tiny ad in 1989, and she came to me and she said, "Jennifer, please apply to this program. This is the Young Professionals Program. It was advertised in our local newspaper. And I said, yes, Mom, I will apply. And I never did. And she came to me a second time and she said, Jennifer, did you apply? I said, oh, I'm going to do it. I didn't. And she came a third time and she was very firm and she said, when are you going to do it? And I did it. So I remember staying after school that day, working very late in the staff room, trying to complete the application. And I did, and I mailed it off. And a couple of weeks later, I received the call from the National Commission, the St. Lucia National Commission for UNESCO, inviting me to an interview, a pre-selection interview at the local level. I accepted and I went. When I went into the interview that day, there were several students lined up waiting for a possibility to be interviewed, but I had an appointment. So I went in, I was interviewed, and I left. Then a couple of weeks later, I got a call indicating to me, that was about the end of June 1989. By then, I had already changed jobs. I had left the teaching job and had moved into the private sector in the tourism, marketing, and management. And I had just started this job, which took me traveling to different places to promote tourism for our country, St. Lucia. I worked at a hotel, a chain of hotels. And in addition to marketing the hotel, I was also marketing the destination, St. Lucia. Then I got a call from the Secretary General saying to me that I had been selected to come to UNESCO for an interview, along with another St. Lucian. So I said, all right. And I had to speak to my director, which was not very easy because I had just started this job. And my director said to me, Jennifer, normally I shouldn't let you go on this interview, but I don't want to stand in your way because I have the feeling if you go on this interview, you won't be coming back to us. I went on this interview and I traveled to Paris, to UNESCO headquarters in July 1989. And here I am, I arrived, and I was interviewed along with 13 other potential YPP candidates for the position of young professional, which is basically to start a lifetime career with the organization. So we were interviewed. I was interviewed in July. I remember clearly the 25th of July, 1989. And along with the interview, we had different briefs. We visited UNESCO and different parts in Paris just to see the cultural aspects and to see how it ties in with the organization. So it was a very hectic week, learned a lot of things, and then we said goodbye and would wait for the result. In August 1989, the 29th of August 89, I was on a trip to Canada for my present job in tourism. And I got a call saying to me that I had been selected to become a young professional in the UNESCO program. So when the news came, I was happy. And I really thought that all of us were selected, but no, 6 of us were selected. And I was the candidate from St. Lucia, along with 5 other candidates from different parts of the world. So this is where my story begins, my journey starts. So the wish and the thought turned into reality. And I had to resign from my current job, the job of tourism. And I had to be at UNESCO in October for the general conference. But because of the resignation, I asked for a delay and I arrived at UNESCO on the 12th of November, 1989. When I left home in November 1989, heading to UNESCO, the wall of Berlin was coming down. So history was in the making. That was the time that the wall was being torn down. So I remember it marked me. And here I am, very young, going into this great organization, not knowing what to expect, what would happen, leaving my family behind, going to a place where I know no one. But it was my calling, and so I went. And I took up duty on the 13th of November, 1989, and walked into this organization again, feeling lost. The average age was very high, so we were like kids. The 6 of us who got selected were like really kids in this huge, massive organization. And life started, we were trained in different sectors, and finally we got placed in the positions that we would be in for the next 2 years. And before we got accepted as staff members, we had to pass the probationary period, which took 9 months. And that I passed and went on to becoming a staff member. And since then, I have served in various positions in the organization, in staffing and recruitment, human resources management, fundraising, resource mobilization, coordinating, liaison functions, and emergency assistance programs, and a variety of fields that I have covered: project management, field office program coordination. And this is the span. I have extensive experience in these areas. And this is the span of positions I've held since joining UNESCO in 1989. And today I'm in the Human Resources Partnerships Program, as I mentioned in my introduction. So here I am in UNESCO, and what seemed so far away was within reach. Now, what happened since I came to UNESCO? Many things. So I would like to share with you the challenges, the results, the lessons learned, and life at UNESCO from my own personal perspective. As Joan pointed out in her presentation, there are many benefits. There are many benefits. You have the financial benefits she pointed out. Then we also have the benefits of meeting an international population, diverse culture, people from various backgrounds. We have the benefits of meeting world leaders who visit the organization ever so often. We have the benefits of participating in great meetings, learning so much. So much has happened since I came. I have grown, I've evolved, I have moved, I've learned. I have become a seasoned professional, and I can work anywhere in the world after working with UNESCO because it's challenging. I have seen so much and done so much, and I still have so much left to do. But the most beautiful thing for me about working at UNESCO is not really what UNESCO can do for me, but what I can do for UNESCO. What do I bring to it? And this is what keeps me going 30 years later. What have I brought to UNESCO? As Joan again pointed out, coming to the UN, it's not just coming for the benefits, but it's coming to make a difference, coming to make changes, coming to touch the lives of people and lift people up. And that is who I am. And this is why I'm still there, and I'm still motivated, because this is what I brought to UNESCO. I brought my personality, a people person. I love people, and everything I do, it must make a difference to people. And I'm able to do this in UNESCO, especially where I am right now. I have contributed to so much, and I still have so much more. And even outside of my work, in dealing with my colleagues from different backgrounds, I've learned to respect diversity. I've learned to be tolerant. I've learned to just take people as they come, because we're different and we cannot compare, because every culture is different. And while the work at UNESCO is challenging, the most challenging thing is tolerating, living with each other, accepting each other, and dealing with each other in differences, accepting the differences and working together for the common good of the organization and its member states. A key aspect of UNESCO is service. Why are we here? Why did I come here? I came to serve. I didn't come only to serve St. Lucia, but I came to serve the organization on behalf of all its 193 member states. And that is the beauty. When we came up, the first thing we were told, we come from a certain country, but we serve all countries equally. And this I've been able to do. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Now, when I speak to you, it would seem that it's so perfect. No, it's not. It would seem that it's easy. It's not. It looks as if it's simple, you apply and you get in. No, there are brilliant people out there in the audience right now, and you would apply. But does it mean you're going to succeed? Maybe not, and maybe yes. But you should not give up hope. You should keep trying, because we never know what can happen, as in my case. So UNESCO is this great organization with such a beautiful mandate. And there's so much passion that is brought to serving, to helping, when we have to think of the people who are suffering from wars, who are torn apart. And we have to put in education programs to lift them up, to build them up, emergency programs to help them out of the difficulties. There is not 1 minute to spare. There's so much to be done. The world needs so much, and we are here. And we cannot do everything. So UNESCO has a global reach. UNESCO works globally, regionally, and locally. And it works with partners. It works with other UN agencies. We all one big family. It works with other intergovernmental organizations, other non-governmental organizations, private sector partners. So it has a broad network so that it can reach the population. If it cannot do it on its own, it works through different partners, and it also works through our network of field offices. We have 53 field offices spread out in Africa, Asia, Arab states, Asia, Pacific, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and okay, we have some bases in Europe and North America, but we don't necessarily consider them field offices. So we work through these offices to reach the local population, because they're closer to the population than we are in our headquarters base. In addition to that, we also work with a partner called the National Commission. UNESCO is the only UN agency which has a network of national commissions. National commissions are entities which are set up by your local governments in each member state to help advance the work of UNESCO in the different fields of competence. So this gives you an idea of the constitutional base of UNESCO. So over the years, I've had this wonderful opportunity to contribute and to work. But as I said, it's not without difficulties and challenges. There are many challenges along the way. Things like everywhere else in life, no life is a straight road. The road has many curves, and to get where you want to go, you may have to take one path to get to the other. But what do you do when the going gets tough? What do you do when things are difficult? What do you do when you feel that things are not maybe fair, maybe the way you want it to be? In an organization like UNESCO, do you sit down and you say, I'm not going to do it? No. What I have done, I can only speak from my experience. Every time the going got tough, I reinvented my work. I recreated it. Every time things get difficult, I look for other ways of making it better, because sometimes it's just not easy. Sometimes you start a program, and because of what's happening at the local level, maybe there was a setback because of some difficulty, your program falls apart. What do? Do you complain, get stressed out? Of course we do. But the best attitude that I have maintained and adopted is one of continuing, keep going, never giving up. When it's not right, I make it right, because if I don't make it right, no one is going to do it for me. UNESCO is a huge agency, huge organization, and we have to take care of ourselves. The organization does its part, but it's more staff driven. And the best way forward is to keep going and keep remembering why we came here, why I came. And that's what has kept me. I keep remembering, what did I come to do here? What is my mission? My mission is to serve, uplift, make a difference. And when the going gets tough, this is what keeps me going. So this is how I can explain the results achieved from the point of view of what UNESCO has done for me and what I have brought to UNESCO. Also, the challenges, how do I deal with them? One of the greatest assets, the work in itself is challenging, but the most challenging is the interpersonal skills, relations, the way we relate to each other, the way we work in the multicultural teams. This makes the difference to the work. It helps to advance the work, or it can stall it and cause you to regress. So this is a very, very vital aspect, that ability and capacity to connect, to work, to speak to each other with tact, diplomacy, tolerance, understanding. We don't have to necessarily accept, but we have to engage with each other from a perspective of understanding, remembering we are here for a common goal. And the goal is not about us, it's about our member states and the people that we serve, the people's lives we want to change by working in this great organization. So this is how I can explain my experience this far. And this is how I can explain what has kept me here so long. And as I said again, it's not easy always. And nothing is handed to you. You have to work for it. And sometimes you may work very hard and you may deserve it and over deserve it, but you may not get it. And what do? Do you lose motivation? Do you stop going? Do you say, I'm not going to work? No, you have to keep going. And this is what I've done. And this is what I continue to do. And this is what has brought me to this point. And I'm so happy to be here to share this with you. And are there any regrets? No, I don't believe in regrets. They're lessons learned. What are the lessons learned? There's so many lessons learned. There's so many lessons learned every day. Lessons learned from the personal perspective, professional perspective, cultural perspective. What do we take with us? What do we continue to share? And how do we educate our young people who are coming up? Because the population of UNESCO is growing and changing. And we have moved to a highly aged population to a very young population now. And we even have what we call the young UNESCO. How do we set an example and become role models to these persons? Do we do it by complaining? By setting a negative standard? No. We do it by transmitting the ideals and the values of the organization and sort of mentoring and helping the young people to embark and to start that journey like I did so many years ago. So in my daily work, I come into contact with a lot of people, and it may not necessarily be directly work, but in our communication experience, so much is shared. And by sharing, sometimes we just end up enhancing our work, maybe solving a problem, maybe doing something better so that we can evolve better in the work environment. So this is another aspect. So lessons learned have been great, and they continue. You continue to learn. You continue. It's like being at university again. You learn every day. There's so many meetings. There's so many documents. There's so much. It's so rich. It's like an institution, a monument. You come to UNESCO and you never leave because you always remain part of that family. And even if you leave, you always come back. We have several colleagues who have retired and they keep coming back because UNESCO is home. And for me, UNESCO is home because I grew up in UNESCO. My life started here. I came here as a young girl, and this is where I got married. This is where my sons are born. So UNESCO is more than a job to me. It's a family. I raised the family for UNESCO, and I'm so grateful for that. And my family has been a great factor, a great contribution to keeping me going. So they have played a great role too, you know, and sometimes it's not easy to balance work and home, especially when the kids are small, but as they grow, it gets easier. And as Joan pointed out, there are many benefits which have evolved to help parents manage their young children, but this is not the case for me anymore because the boys are grown. So I have moved from the professional to the personal. And now I want to say, many of you are going to apply to UNESCO, I'm sure, and to the UN. Or some of you may think, but it may not work. I may never get here. And I would say, no, try. And even if you do not get to work directly with UNESCO or maybe another UN agency, there are many other ways you can contribute. You can contribute by connecting with other organizations that are in touch with UNESCO, other organizations that work with them. And that way you would be contributing indirectly. So there are many different ways because, of course, the supply of availability is limited and the demand may be high. What do you do? So never give up hope. You keep trying. And if that door doesn't open, you try another door. Now, in addition to the Young Professionals Program, which Joan spoke about, and we also have it at UNESCO, as I'm now explaining to you, there are other programs through which persons can enter the organization. Now, unfortunately, some of them may not have a salary linked. You have cases like we have the UNESCO volunteer program, whereby one can come into the organization, not necessarily headquarters, but maybe as field offices. We have a field office in Kingston, which covers the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean islands. And sometimes the program can go from two weeks to 6 months, where someone can apply and get there. And even if it's non-paying, but the experience you gain would be very relevant. So this is one entry point, in addition to the global entry point, which is to apply via the UNESCO career website. Then we have other opportunities such as loans. Sometimes you have releasing entities, like it could be government, sometimes it could be private sectors who finance the employment of persons in the organization, and the salaries are paid by the releasing entity. And this person is dispatched to the organization, could be up to 2 years, maximum 4 years. And the experience that is gained through that program is monumentous. There's so much that can happen. So while it may not happen through the Young Professional Program, it could happen through loans, UNESCO volunteers. It could also happen from what we have called the traineeship program. Again, this program is for young graduates, and it also has to be sponsored. So this is the only disadvantage, whereby there must be a sponsor. Whereas with the Young Professional, it is financed by the organization, and of course, the international positions that are open on our website. So this is what I could share with you right now. And again, as I would say, never shy from trying, because we never know when the door may open up, as happened to me and several other people, I'm sure. Now, I would like to move to another point in the sense of...
Hi, Jennifer.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just saying that we need to get the other Jennifer on as well.
Okay, so let me wrap up. Okay, so cool. I'll wrap up here. Okay. So what I would like to say in closing is that, okay, let me try to get my thoughts because I lost it here. Yes, well, this is what I could share with you, my story, my experience up to date. And what I would like to say is that keep trying, and if it doesn't work for this door, it can work for another door. And finally, UNESCO doesn't end when the career ends, when the retirement comes, because all what I've learned at UNESCO, all the experience I've gained, all the skills and competencies I've acquired over this period, such a long period of time, I want to take it with me. I want to take it back home with me. And when I leave UNESCO, I want to return to my country, St. Lucia, and I want to connect with our young people, especially our young people who are underprivileged, our young people who didn't have opportunities. It's almost like a second chance. And I want to provide an environment where I can, through an association or foundation, I could help them to rediscover themselves and find their way again and become the best of who they can be. So when I'm gone, when it's over, I'm taking UNESCO with me again, and I'm bringing it back home, right where I started in 1989. I want to thank you so much for listening to my story, for sharing with me. And I wish you all the very best in the undertaking for those of you who will be applying and whatever other path you will be taking. And I will be here in case there are questions that are put forward that I will be called upon to answer. Thank you very much. And again, it has been a wonderful pleasure to my fellow citizens of St. Lucia and fellow citizens of the Caribbean islands that are present today. Thank you very much, and thank you, Cleveland.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And I know that you have made at least one person happy this evening who is following us on Facebook, Jade George, and she said, based on your presentation and your story, that's beautiful. You have given me, or you give me hope. All right, we have, that's beautiful indeed. We have another Jennifer, and she's a Senior Legal Officer with the Critical Incident Response Service, Office of Human Resources, Department of Management Strategy, Policy, and Compliance in New York. Joan, we're gonna give you 5 minutes to tell us a bit about your story, because we have quite a number of questions that are in the chat to put to you guys. Go ahead, Jennifer.
All right.
Jennifer Branch.
Yes, thank you very much. I got my my phone here, 5 minutes. I'll try to see what I can do in 5 minutes. First of all, I think one of the most important things that I can say to my regional brothers and sisters in the Caribbean is that you should not be dismayed if your name is not Jennifer. You just were introduced, you had a long session with one Jennifer, now you'll have an abbreviated session with another Jennifer, but we take people seriously regardless of whether they're called Jennifer or not. This is just a lovely coincidence that I have the privilege of meeting another Caribbean national with the name Jennifer. My experience is similar, but also different. I joined the UN in 1998, and I guess it happened based on fate, destiny, what have you. From the time I was a child, I wanted to join the UN, to work for the UN, because my school, I attended a Catholic school which celebrated UN Day, and the goals seemed to me to be similar. What you can do for the world. My school motto is Serve Yam. I'm of the generation that wasn't obliged to learn Latin in school, but I do know it means I will serve. So that's how I was raised. As you know, in the Caribbean, we go to high school at 10, 11 years. And from that time, there was Serve Yam, serving my community, teaching the less fortunate, looking after families, adopting families, even as school children, raising funds for them. So I thought the UN would be a wonderful place to continue my life of service. And I can tell you that I was determined to join the UN. It was my dream, even before I knew what I was going to study. At high school, I did in those days CXC and then A levels. And I did English, French, Spanish, because I was determined to go to Geneva to study to be an interpreter and work for the UN. But I was also a national debating champion. I'm from Guyana. And I thought, well, I have lots to say about policy, about how the world should be run. So I'm not going to be translating or interpreting other people's policies and submissions. I have my own. So I went into law, and I kind of forgot about the UN, but it was always on my radar because I was at Cave Hill in Barbados, where we all met in those days for the law program. And I chose international law courses. So at the back of my mind was still the thought that the UN is a distinct possibility. It's what I want to do. It's the place for me, meeting people, some of all the wonderful things. I'm very outgoing, and I wanted to bring my Caribbean sunshine to the UN and to the peoples of the world and to serve them. So I was always interested. I worked at home for a while. I was working in central banking. And what I want to say to you, you know, I studied after Cave Hill, and after getting qualified, law school, the full works, I studied corporate law at the University College London. And I thought, well, you know, maybe this is what I want to do if I join a UN system entity. I don't think we had a lot of time to talk about the Bretton Woods institutions or the multilateral financial institutions, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which though they are not UN agencies, they are members of the broader UN system. So you can see that there's scope for you regardless of your profession. The UN employs engineers, or the UN system employs a broad range of disciplines. So I thought, since I've specialized, I've got, a lot of specialized learning or knowledge in corporate law and financial law and commercial law, uh, the place for me might be the IMF or the World Bank. And so as my namesake Jennifer said, we may try different things. So I tried, first of all, because I set up the legal department at the central bank in Guyana, and I thought I was interacting with financial people. And so it seemed like a natural place for me to develop an international career and have the same objectives I had when I thought of the UN. But it didn't work out, although I was shortlisted, interviewed a number of times. And one of my mentors, who actually was a financial person with one of these institutions, said to me, the United Nations system is open to all the citizens of the world. It belongs to us too. Why don't you take that seriously? And then an opportunity came when a small commission was set up in Geneva, and I was flown there just like namesake Jennifer. I did in those, we don't fly people anymore, I have to say. Unfortunately, even if you are shortlisted, you're unlikely to be flown because the technology can do it for us, just like we can talk to each other now. I was flown to Geneva. They told me I had to do a test. I figured, oh, well, maybe because Guyana is in South America, they want to test my English. Turned out to be a very serious and comprehensive international law test. And I passed it. I was offered a job, and that's where my UN career started. And we've talked about how massive the UN is. I spent just a year with this entity that really was an arm of the UN Secretariat itself. But then I got recruited. I heard through a contact that the International Labor Organization, which is like the grandfather of the UN, it was there from the time of the League of Nations 100 years ago. And I understood they were looking for a commercial lawyer with French and Spanish competency. And I had not only done my A-levels and kept up my languages, but I also enrolled in classes as soon as I got there. So I passed the UN proficiency exam in French, and I could work in Spanish. And so an opportunity opened for me with law, but also procurement. So there are lots of opportunities that the UN has in various disciplines. And I can tell you that a colleague of mine who actually was at Cave Hill with me called me just this year after being in legal practice for decades, and said she got hired. This is probably going to be her last job, but she just got hired in Vienna, where the IAEA, I won't go into all the details of the name, etc. You can look that up. But she just got hired there to work in procurement, a lawyer also. She had practiced in corporate law. She had experience in contracting and commercial matters. And she just got hired after trying. I think she was trying for as long. When I got my job, she said, I want to work there too. And so she's been trying for a couple decades. So this goes to show you just keep trying if that's what you want to do. You don't stop your life. You move on. You pursue other professional opportunities. You get married. You have your family. This is what she did. And now she's coming. Her daughter's already graduated from college. And now she's going to join the UN and start this amazing journey. So I think I have the benefit of not having to say a lot of what I intended to say because it's been covered already. But I encourage you, I want to reiterate what was said before. Think of what you can offer. What can I offer? This is important not only in terms of service, but as a strategy in terms of how you get into the UN, because you have to be offering what the UN, any number of its entities, 40 affiliates of the UN system, you have to be offering what they're looking for. So that's your first thing, to do your homework, find out what the UN is looking for, not only in terms of the discipline, not only in terms of, whether you have a PhD in your skill, but apart from the academic qualifications, what are your skills? What have you been doing in your country to support development? What experience have you garnered? What new things have you done? What has been your innovation? I'm sure that there were a lot of innovations from Jennifer, who spoke with you earlier, and I had innovations myself. I set up the legal department. That was the first time my country had a legal department in its central bank. I had a lot of other things that I was doing at the community level through the Women Lawyers Association. And so, you have to demonstrate that you care about people. It's not just a job that you're looking for an opportunity. So think about all the things that you can bring to the organization. And what I would say is pay a lot of attention in the way you put together your personal history profile, in the way you match your qualifications, experience, etc., to what the UN is looking for. This is for general applications. Also, even if it's an internship that you're looking for, because those are very competitive now as well, because people get a chance to get experience, which can be a distinct advantage when they're looking for employment. Think about the competencies. And this is a tip that we give to each other in the organization, because we have to compete for positions as well. So think about the competencies, look at them carefully, and think of examples in your career that you can share, assuming that you have successfully passed the assessment stage, because we do have assessments not only for our staff, not only for externals, but also for our staff. So you have to study for that test, study the job requirements, and ensure that you are prepared. You go to our website and get all the relevant information that is related to the job that you're applying for. So that's the first step, or those are the first steps: matching, determining what you can offer, finding the right match in our system, not just one organization. Find out about all of the organizations that are in our UN family. Then you have to prepare for your test in the event that you are invited to test. Assuming that you're successful at that point, then you have to look at the competencies, the competency-based interview. That's something that even existing staff prepare for very carefully. Look at the competencies, at each element in the competencies, and make sure that you practice and have someone listen to you so that you can refine and also gain confidence and fluency, because those interviews are quick. 5 minutes to answer a comprehensive question on your experience, to give a good solid example that will convince them that you have the right attitude to work for the UN, to find solutions to problems, and to get along with your colleagues, and to be a leader as well. So Jennifer said it already, keep applying. If you don't succeed right away, you've heard it from me. I thought at one point UN, then I thought financial institutions, Bretton Woods institutions in Washington, D.C., or maybe the Inter-American Development Bank. Then I tried the UN, and like that, I got lucky to be shortlisted, tested, and successful. And then, it moved on from there, but it didn't happen right away. It happened faster for me than for my flatmate with whom I studied law. But, you just never give up your dream. And another good thing that Jennifer said that I'll reiterate is, even if you don't find a job, you're not offered a position with the UN, there are lots of ways that you can collaborate with the UN. That maybe you can be a consultant short term. You can look at the footprint of the UN in the region. We have ECLA. I worked not only, as I said, with the UN, but also with the International Labor Organization. Part of my job was to review, contracting and legal compliance matters for programs that were implemented in the region through the labor, the labor element of the Caribbean entities, of organizations dealing with labor. Programs were implemented. Caribbean counterparts competed for those contracts and they got them. So that's another way. Then maybe you can also look at different committees and councils like human rights. I have people that I studied with, friends or classmates who I meet, not too many of them, but occasionally I do meet some of them who are representing their countries. They are liaising on gender issues or human rights issues, and they come to meetings here or Geneva, what have you. So those are other ways in which you can represent your country and people of the region, also gain experience collaborating with UN type issues, on UN type issues. And I think, apart from that, I just say, remember the UN is one big family, lots of disciplines. So good luck to you all, maintain your interest, and over to our chair now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer number 2. Awesome stuff. So all 3 presenters entered the UN through 3 different methods. And as our main presenter, Joan, pointed out, there are a number of entry points. I would like if all of our presenters could come back on screen. So Joan, I can start with you. We have a few questions lined up that we're gonna try and get some responses to. So thank you very much for our Facebook and YouTube audiences who are still with us. And so there seem to be a lot of questions around the whole issue of age and cutoff points. So Joan, I'm gonna go to you first. And this one says, what is the cutoff age for the junior professionals program? The junior professional program, what is the cutoff age for that?
Junior professionals program, I believe that's also at the same level as the YPP, where you would have to be 32 or less. Let me text my colleague Ava. I'm not 100%
It's
sure. On that one.
May I come in? It's
Yeah.
32. Yeah, 32.
32.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is the same. Mhm.
Right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'm sure you've just made somebody else very happy. The other question in relation to age is generally, apart from the YPP and the young professional programs, in the one of the screenshots that you put up, there were a number of jobs listed there. Are there age limits for these regular jobs? If you're not entering as a young professional or the YPP, can anybody 40, 50 apply for a general job that they see on the UN? So can you just explain that? Right,
yes,
and how that works?
Yes, most definitely. Any age at all. We don't discriminate on age, other than if, of course, if they've reached the retirement age, which right now is 65. So if you're coming for regular jobs, you'd have to be younger than that, 65.
All right, so I'm sure my colleagues, well, our friends who are following online are very happy to hear that, because as I said, the age issue only relates to the YPP and the junior professional program.
Yeah, because it's a junior entry level program.
Right, and with specific academic requirements. But if you're a seasoned professional, all the other jobs are open to you.
Yeah, open to you.
Right, and just to, again, to clarify for them, that you would go through the same portal that you put up there, where they apply and put in their education, experience, and so on a cover letter.
Yes, yes, it's the same method, all of the jobs.
Right, and Jennifer Branch, you had mentioned, so I assume this is the route you went through, Jennifer Branch?
No, actually, I applied for a regular job, a legal officer job, just a bit above entry level. And then I was shortlisted, well, longlisted, I guess, invited for an interview and test. No, I guess that would have to be shortlisted in those days. And I was flown to Geneva to do an interview, and it turned out they threw a surprise at me, a legal exam before the interview, and that's the route I came. And then once I got into the system, you know, I got to know people, and I looked around, and I found something else and stayed with that for a while. Yeah, in Geneva.
Okay, great. All right. And you're from Guyana. You're from St. Lucia. Joan, where are you from?
I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa.
You're from Ghana. So there we go. South America, Caribbean, and Africa, we have covered there. So diversity already in place.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Jennifer. Yes.
Before we go on, I just want to make a point about the Young Professionals Program of UNESCO. With UNESCO, because it's a little different, I mean, it's the same concept as the UN, but for actually the headhunting is done by our national commissions. So every member state has a national commission. And when we advertise our program, it's advertised, but the first point of pre-selection is at the national level. And then they send us the list of pre-selected candidates, and then we move forward. It was just to make this point. Yeah.
Okay, and that's specific to UNESCO.
Yes, yes.
Okay, which is just one of the UN many agencies.
Yes, yes, but that's the big difference. Yeah. Okay.
All right. A very specific question here. I think this would go to Joan. Where can I work with a public sector management BSc degree in the UN? I'm sure there are lots of possibilities.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. And that's what I showed when I put up the map of the UN systems and organizations. The different jobs, if you look at all that we're involved in, every agency, every organization at some point needs somebody in a certain field. And so that's why you broaden your search. UNICEF, UNDP, UN Secretariat, you name it. There are many, many jobs that come up in terms of the different projects and assignments that needs to be.
There's another question, but the mere fact that we have 3 people here from 3 different countries answers this question, which was that can persons from one country apply for a job in another country? But
That's what the UN is about.
Right. We have a question from someone online asking, how does the online volunteering program work? Can you explain that, Joan?
So you would go and register your availability at the volunteers.un.org. And there's a link there. If you go to even our careers.un.org, you will be able to find a link there, or you can go directly to the website volunteers.un.org. And when you go there, you will be able to fill up a form to show what skills you have available and your availability, right? And so that is posted there, and you have different agencies, government institutions, and so whoever is looking for a volunteer, they will look in terms of what project they're looking for, and it will be matched to
with the skill set.
And then you'll be contacted, and then it starts from there. So it's completely online. You work on different projects online.
Okay, great. Another question coming fast and furious. With reference to the YPP, can you explain the examination components?
Okay, that's the part that I think I mentioned during the presentation, but I'm gonna say it again. There are 2 parts plus a competency-based interview. So the first part is the general paper, which will test your knowledge in certain attributes and also your abilities to be able to work in an international organization. Those are like multiple choice questions. And then after that, you go into the specialized paper, which tests your substantive knowledge in analyzing real life problems in your specific subject that you've applied to taking. So you'll be given a problem, and then you'll be asked to solve it. And so you would need to be able to write analytical essays to explain what you would do in that scenario.
Right, problem solving skills.
You need to have very good writing and problem solving skills.
All right.
And then if you pass that, then you come on to the competency-based interview phase, the oral exam. Yeah.
All right, more questions. These ones are coming from YouTube. What advice would you give to someone who stayed on the roster past 3 years, but was unsuccessful? Any one of you can answer that. I know Jennifer was encouraging people to go again.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to respond to this. Yes, thank you. 3 years and was unsuccessful. We also have a roster, and we sometimes go fishing for the candidates. Sometimes they don't come back. But what is good when you would apply? You apply, you monitor, you follow up, you check, sometimes you ask what is happening, you make contact, and don't be afraid, be bold, and come in to ask what is happening to my application. And you may get a response, but at the same time, while waiting, advance, create, apply, do more, go further. Because when you would be picked up, let's say you applied in year 1, year 2 goes by, and we're heading into year 3, we are going to look at what have you done since year 1. So the candidate who would do something more would also have a better chance than somebody who did nothing. And if you have done all of that and nothing happens, it would be good to check, find out, follow up, what is happening to my application, be proactive. Don't be afraid to knock at the door.
All right. And the door, by the door, you mean the National Commission?
National Commission, yes, definitely. Okay. But sometimes once you have gone through the process all the way up, you can even also write to UNESCO, write to Human Resources and ask, and we would answer. Yeah.
Sorry, Joan?
I have a friend who already, before he could even, the minute he was placed on the roster, already went and became a UN volunteer in Cote d'Ivoire.
So exactly, there you are.
Experience before he was picked up. So that was an excellent way. And I wondered why he did that, but that was very strategic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So while he was waiting for a job, he went to become a volunteer.
A volunteer, yes.
All
And
right. So by the
volunteers
time
do
he
get
got
an
the job,
allowance, so he was able to live off that while he's gaining experience and
Right.
networking, because you do meet a lot of UN professionals during your
Yes.
volunteer process.
And
Right.
maybe
So
if I can jump in here, Cleveland, I guess I may not have heard it, but maybe it was covered that we do pay our UN volunteers a living wage. It's
Yeah.
not a full
Yes.
salary, but
Yes, we do.
volunteering doesn't mean that you are deprived of an income. You are paid, and in some countries, because I remember when I was a young lawyer working in Guyana, we had UN volunteers who I can tell you lived very, very nicely. So
I know in Guyana,
depending
cost
on
of
where
living
you
is very
go,
affordable as well.
yeah. So depending on where you go,
Right.
the package can be quite attractive.
Comfortable.
In most developing countries, the
Mhm.
package, which is where the volunteers tend to be, the package can be quite attractive.
Actually, you guys have just answered the next questions from somebody whose Facebook name is Godchild Dominique. And that was a question, do UN volunteers get paid? And we already heard that they do get a stipend, and it is a livable wage. So
Yeah, I
you're not
mentioned it
gonna
also.
starve.
Yeah, I mentioned it in my
Yeah. So just so she knows that she may not have picked up on it when Joan mentioned it.
Yeah.
And the one thing I would say about the volunteers, I mean, it sounds like, it's not a Girl Scout, Boy Scout kind of thing. It's a professional type service that is rendered, because I have interacted with volunteers in the Secretariat, and some of them were tremendously talented people with PhDs and actual work experience in their countries. So they could come on and they take on regular work. I mean, there are some limitations for various contractual reasons as to what they can get, but depending on what one makes of it, it can be a very valuable opportunity as well.
Right.
In terms of the work experience and the opportunity to network.
Yeah. I would like to jump in here just to make a little clarification. In the case of the UN volunteers, as Joan and Jennifer said, they do get paid, but the UNESCO volunteers are not paid. So this is something else. Yes, they're not paid, it's voluntary. So just to make it clear.
Fully voluntary.
Yeah, fully voluntary, exactly, just to get in.
All right.
Yes.
Someone is asking if there's any opportunity for persons in healthcare to work at the UN.
Yes, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have pharmacists, we have researchers. It's the possibilities are endless. UNICEF, because remember, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals that I put there, if you look at the functions or the projects that could possibly come out of those, you would know that you would need healthcare professionals. For example, when the Ebola crisis came, it was a lot of UN doctors. I mean, you name it. Yes, definitely.
I mean, the UN is the parent of the World Health Organization, which is headquartered in Geneva. I mean, that's the leading research and professional health institute in the world. So that's a specialized UN agency.
COVID press conference.
Exactly, that is a specialized agency. But then each of the UN entities, whether a UN fund like UNICEF or a program like UNDP or the Secretariat itself, and all of its peacekeeping missions, which are quite numerous. Each entity has a medical presence, because there's someone to look at our records, to determine, just like in any going concern, you submit your sick leave or you have to undergo a physical before you join. So there's a medical team to review that. Just the ongoing concern in any organization.
All right, Joan, just try and get in a couple more questions. We're going to go for another 7 minutes until 8:15 Eastern Caribbean time. I have a background in, this person wants to know if they have a background in accounting and administration, what areas should they apply? Field service, general service? Because I know you had like a list of different work categories. Joan.
Well, they have a bachelor's, right?
Yes, in accounting and administration.
Okay, so then how many years of experience? That would
15.
15?
Yes.
Okay, so then they have to apply for the professional level jobs. For 15, at least P4.
Yeah, P4,
P4, P5, even a D1, maybe, depending on, that's a director, because you need 15 years to become a director.
Okay.
Yeah, so depending on the substance of the experience they have They could very well qualify to become a director in administration. Because
and I can't wait to jump in here because this is something critical even for UN staff, because sometimes junior staff members say to me, but I have 5 years experience, I should have gotten this or that post. And I try to tell them that's the minimum. You may be competing with people who have twice the required, the minimum requirement of experience. There will be people with 30 years experience applying for a director post because it's very senior.
So for somebody like that, it's senior level position, P5, D1, hopefully they have the substance in the experience.
All right, there are a number of questions coming about UN Sustainable Development Goals, but I know I won't put you guys on the spot to answer those because I know that is not what we're focusing on here. We also have someone from Jamaica who has joined us, and they wanted to know if they did not see Jamaica on the list of for the YPP. Are there any similar programs for persons in Jamaica, Joan?
And that's why when I was mentioning the entry points, I mentioned that not every country will make it on the list. We have so many Jamaican friends in the UN right now that they are not underrepresented at this time. So right now for Jamaican nationals, they will not be participating in the YPP for this year. However, there are other entry points, and those are the ones that I went over. So they shouldn't give up. The YPP is not the only way to come in. There's just one way, right?
And
here's your witness. That's the reason why I didn't join through the YPP as well. There are a lot of Guyanese in the UN. So it made no sense to apply to that program, but I applied to a regular professional application and was successful.
And I want to emphasize that that is exactly the point of this forum this evening, is that to reach out to people from the Eastern Caribbean who are generally underrepresented. Yes. All right, great. There are a number of questions, but they tend to be specific to persons with specific qualifications, and we don't want to get into that because you're going to have to be, very specific. Suffice it to say that persons who are interested in knowing in terms of professions such as nutrition and auditing and other areas like that, I think you have said that they're basically jobs for every possible profession you could think about at the UN.
If there's any questions that we don't get to, or perhaps it's very personal or too individual, they can email us at talentoutreach@un.org. I will share it with you.
Can you repeat that slowly again?
Talent outreach, one word.
Talent outreach.
Talent outreach at un.org.
At un.org.
So we will address them individually because not everybody wants to share their question here. So
here's an interesting question from our YouTube channel. Can you volunteer with UN whilst doing other work? So you have your full-time job. Can you volunteer with the UN while you're doing your full-time job?
The volunteering is full-time. It will take your time. A lot of them travel to different areas. I don't know how you can pull that off. Probably the online volunteer, but even then it would depend. So I would say apply anywhere, and then during your interview, talk to your hiring manager and see how that can be done. If it's online, maybe. And maybe something part-time, especially with COVID, there's so much exceptions and special arrangements going on. So the best would be to apply and then.
What I can say is in general, a commitment to the UN is a full-time commitment, just like Joan said, because, for staff members, for instance, we have an oath of allegiance. When we work for the UN, we have to, attest to a certain code of conduct. I know that for the UNVs, the UN volunteers, they also have a code of conduct because the work that we do is so special, and we have to maintain a neutral posture in everything that we do and serve only the organization. We can't have conflicts of interest with government or other, any other interest groups. So it's a serious commitment, even for a volunteer. Perhaps it's a misnomer to think of it just as volunteering. It is a job, in a sense, a professional obligation, a professional undertaking, and there can be no conflict of interest. So maybe, I hope that clarifies.
That's a great point, Jennifer B. That's a great point.
We're both B's.
Jennifer, what is possible also when in some cases there's an arrangement at the outset, an arrangement can be made in some of the, maybe for instance in the UNESCO volunteer, we can make an arrangement at the outset of the part-time. So this would
Okay.
have to be agreed upon at the beginning, but in really something like that, but not in the other jobs, as Joan and Jennifer have said. Yeah.
But to
Yeah, Joan?
highlight what Jennifer Branch has said, you will be required to be committed to the UN. So there's that issue of conflict of interest, right? So technically, strictly speaking, most likely you will not be allowed to be able
To be working.
No, I was referring to our UNESCO volunteer
yes,
program. Yes, we
So I'm
have
talking
situations where we have an agreement at the outset, not in the
Okay.
other yes, just this one. Because
Okay.
sometimes it's an arrangement between maybe school and something else, and because of the nature of the contract, we can work through it. Yes,
So that's
but we'd have to agree from the beginning.
beginning. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And you
So
probably
we
have
have
to see what you're doing.
two more minutes, and I want you to just clarify this and explain this a little more for us, Joan, because I've seen and heard this in the past, and this question came up. The whole issue of agencies recruiting, purporting to be recruiting people for the UN. I know you mentioned it, but I want you to explain that the UN does not use agencies to do this.
No,
because the question here, and the question here the person was asking is is there anyone who can guide us when preparing the application? So can you just emphasize the fact that the UN does not use agencies and how the application process goes?
Yes, the UN does not use any agencies or contractors or anybody that helps us with the application process. When you apply through the method that I showed you, you will receive a formal invitation to take the exam. It's called You'll Be Convoked if you qualify. And at that point, they will give you guidance materials like sample questions, etc. And also certain resources where even online on our Facebook, etc., we give tips on how to study, things like that. And so on our own, we help you free of charge. So it is a bit risky if you were to go on the outside, you may receive the wrong information and again, get charged for it, which we are giving you for free. So be very careful and do not pay for any material from the UN. The whole employment process for the UN, whether it's for the YPP or anything else, is free of charge. The UN doesn't charge for our employment process.
Awesome. All right, so I just want you to repeat the address again for the talent while I'm gonna,
outreach.
Go ahead.
Talent outreach, one word, at un.org.
Okay, very simple, guys. Talent outreach at un.org. All right, again, two other questions were related specifically to specific master's program in international development and humanitarian action. And the other one is interested in sociology and evaluation and management. Again, I assume that there are careers in these areas.
In every area, they come up, dependent. So that's why it's important to go online. I'm speaking specifically for the UN Secretariat, for example, and go on the website and create your profile. And then you'll be able to set job alerts for those fields of that you're interested in. And so what will happen is, I think that one is open for at least 2 years when you set those alerts. So each time any department advertises a job in the fields that you've selected, you will automatically be emailed that Mr. Smith, so this job opening is now available for you to apply. That way you don't miss any opportunities that come up, because they do come up periodically in many, many fields.
And one thing
and permanent jobs.
One thing I can jump in to say is that we need to think kind of zoom out, big picture, because the fact that a person studied a particular, has a particular certification doesn't restrict them. For instance, we have many jobs in administration where they will say a degree or blah, 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 first level degree in law, auditing, this, that, very broad, because there are a lot of horizontal issues. For instance, I initially trained after qualifying as a lawyer, I trained in corporate law. I also had picked up on issues. I've worked on areas relating to audit, to procurement, to compliance and monitoring. So, once you get into a broad field like administration, you can find multiple disciplines competing for the same job. So, I would encourage our colleagues, our regional compatriots, to think broad, zoom out, and just study what we're advertising, and learn, something about the system.
All right. And so just a question relating to that, someone asked if the UN does any sort of outreach similar to what we're doing, like webinars and so on. And I could say yes, because we're doing one right here. But I think the important thing, as you all have been saying, is that people who are interested need to be checking the UN website, the UN Careers website. Yes? All right, I'm going to give each of you 1 minute to wrap up, unless there are any other questions. And I'm going to start with you, Jennifer Branch.
Okay, I'm in the hot seat. Let me see. I don't have a second timer, but basically, I would want to emphasize preparation. Preparation. People have to, who are interested, have to do it for themselves. We've got to be proactive. We've got to learn about the organizations, understand what we can offer, keep checking, be consistent, and study even before you apply for a job. Learn everything so that your application will be relevant as much as you can, and then be thinking about the test. Nowadays they're online, so you may be asked to write something, prepare something in 15 minutes, and then deliver it during a 5-minute video. So it's very competitive, but it can be done, as evidenced by our presence here. And then if you get through all that evaluation, etc., then and I'm not thinking of YPP here, I'm just thinking generally. If you get through all of that, think about the competency-based interview, because each competency has specific elements that have to be understood and demonstrated in the examples that one would give to the panel, the interviewing panel. So good luck, and keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, if that's your dream.
All right, thank you very much, Jennifer Branch. Jennifer Blinker.
Okay, well, for me, I want to move beyond the entry point. And I would say to all of you present here today, whatever you are doing, wherever you are, and if you would make it into the UN, UNESCO, or not, and you take another road, I would strongly encourage you to don't just arrive and that's it. When you get in, you start, but you plan your career. You don't allow it to plan for you. You check, you evaluate, you see what you need to do, what skills you need to develop along the way, because too often we arrive, we are here, we get comfortable and things happen. And we look back and we realize we are stuck. So be vigilant, plan, assess, learn new skills, keep growing, keep developing. If something doesn't work, you try something new. If you apply for a job and it doesn't work, you learn new skills. It's a lifetime, plan it, be passionate about it, get out there, get it done, and don't give up. And if you fall, rise every time you fall and keep going and keep giving the best of you. This is what I would like to leave with you.
Thank you very much. Joan, I'm going to give you your 1 minute, but I have one last question from YouTube that I think is important enough. What if you have certain skill set and many years of experience, but no degree? Would you get employment at the UN? So this is someone who has no university degree, but they have years of experience and certain skill set.
Okay, so then they could come in on the general service level.
Okay,
or
general
the service level. And I would say, even though we call it general service, it sounds general, but it's not. They do a lot of good substantive, analytical, administrative. I mean, they do excellent work. Also in the field service also, they do excellent work. So, and for this, the requirement is only a high school diploma, and then depending on the years and what level. So you can go as low as 3 years experience for the lowest level, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, etc. as you move up. But
so
we have excellent.
There's room for everyone.
Yes, we have excellent staff members who are on the general service level doing very good job. Also.
Okay, there you go. Very encouraging. All right, Joan, you have the last word.
Okay, so I mean, everything has been said. We're giving all the tips. What I want to say is to look within yourselves and search in terms of what purpose you have in this world. What is your goal in this world? Are you somebody who's passionate about making a difference? If that's what it is, then don't think about money per se, although the benefits and everything and the pay to the UN is good. Think about how you can make a change in this world, how you can influence all these initiatives that the UN is about, how you can be part of that. So another thing is to not give up, right? Applying for jobs doesn't mean right away you'll be selected. Don't ever, ever give up. Be very persistent, be very confident in the belief that for sure you will get a job. And if you look at the vast array of agencies, organizations that I showed you, and if you apply it everywhere and have the experience, something will come through. So I wish everybody good luck, especially with the 2020 YPP. Don't forget to put in your applications. And
what's the deadline for that again, Joan?
It's 31st October 2020. The application is open right now. If you have any questions, email us, talentoutreach@un.org, and we'll guide you in your application process.
All right, so I want to thank you guys so much, Joan, Jennifer Branch, and Jennifer Blinker. What are the chances of having two Jennifer B's on the same program?
First time I met another Jennifer from the Caribbean in the UN.
Right, so I want to thank you guys so much. Before I say thank you to the other persons following, I want to thank the guys in the background that you did not see, but who enabled this broadcast to come so effortlessly. David Foster, Patrick Johnson, Richard Bath, Cherise Glasgow, and of course, Marcia Reed. They have been monitoring the YouTube and Facebook chat for us. Also to Ava Jensen, your boss, Joan, who has been the silent observer. Right, and of course to our colleague Leslie Crane Mitchell from the St. Lucia site, who first came to the Marketing and Communications Department with this. And of course to you, Joan, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. And for the people who make this worthwhile, all of our followers on Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much for staying with us for almost 2 hours on a Thursday night. Jennifer Blinker, I want to say a special thank you to you. It's like 1 a.m. now in Paris, or 12 midnight.
Yes, it's quite late. Quite late. No, it's 2:26.
It's 2:30.
Oh my goodness. Yes, so it's 2 a.m. in Paris, and you are up with us. You must have had some Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee stored up somewhere.
No, not at all. I came with passion and love for doing this.
So
now she deserves a glass of French wine.
Oh, no, I don't drink wine. No wine for me. Just the passion and the motivation to share with the young people. And one more thing, Cleveland, before we leave, I just want to tell you, well, I don't want to talk too much about it because of the UN YPP, but UNESCO will be launching their YPP program later this year or sometime early next year. And St. Vincent right now is not represented in the organization. So we will be coming at you, so keep your eyes open.
Well, I am always prepared to represent my country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I hope that the students from the Open Campus who are following this from St. Vincent will also take opportunity when it comes around. So on behalf of my team from the Open Campus Marketing and Communications Department, as well as from our IT department called CATS, and to our panelists this evening, I want to say thank you very much, everyone. I hope that the UN will be flooded from now on with applications from the Eastern Caribbean, and we'll be hearing of more Jennifer Blinkers and Jennifer Branches and Joan Ampher in the future. Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Jennifer.
Good night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
And regards to Leslie as well. Yes.
Sure, will do.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh my.